Have you ever felt like no matter how hard you strive, wealth slips through your fingers like grains of sand? That invisible force, heavier than any debt or scarcity, binds your spirit in quiet poverty, a poverty not just of coins, but of peace, purpose, and possibility. What if this silent struggle is more than bad luck or circumstance? What if it is a shadow cast by unseen chains woven through lifetimes, a karmic blockage that holds your abundance hostage? In the stillness beneath your breath, do you sense a yearning, a wound waiting to be understood, a truth aching to be revealed? Ethan, a retired soldier whose body carries scars but whose soul bears a deeper, quieter pain, knows this ache well. Haunted not only by his past but by a belief whispered in childhood, that money corrupts the soul, he has lived under the weight of fear and scarcity. This belief shaped his choices, closing doors he longed to open, silencing the dreams he once dared to speak. The opportunities lost, the silence in relationships, the creative spark extinguished, all were echoes of that same unseen barrier. Yet, even in this shadow, Ethan's heart holds a fragile hope. A hope that the suffering, the blockage, carries a hidden meaning, a path waiting to be walked, a healing waiting to be born. His journey would unfold through 4 subtle, sacred revelations, teachings not written in books, but whispered by a weathered leaf drifting in autumn's breath. These insights would become the keys to unlocking the cage around his prosperity, revealing how karmic blockages may be gently unbound, freed not by force, but by understanding and grace. As Ethan steps forward into the unknown, his story invites you to meet your own silent struggles with courage and tenderness. To see that beneath the pain lies a purpose, and within the struggle, a way through. Join this quiet unfolding, where stillness speaks and stories heal. Welcome to Zen Companion, where every breath is a step toward awakening. Subscribe and walk this path of transformation together, one heart at a time. The call to change often arrives wrapped in subtle signs, a whisper beneath the noise of everyday life. For Ethan, it came unexpectedly on a rain-soaked morning when a stray dog appeared at the edge of the barracks grounds, a creature with eyes that seemed to hold a silent knowing. This animal, weary yet unyielding, became a mirror to Ethan's own hidden wounds and quiet yearning. The dog's gentle presence stirred something long dormant within him, a call to face the barriers that kept his spirit confined, to confront the invisible blockages woven by his past and the beliefs he carried like armor. This moment marked the first ripple in the still waters of his life. The dog did not speak, yet its gaze held a language beyond words, an invitation to walk a different path, to listen deeply to the truths Ethan had buried beneath duty and fear. The soldier's heart, hardened by years of survival, felt a crack of vulnerability. The familiar script, that wealth was a poison to the soul, that seeking abundance was a selfish act, began to falter in the face of this silent messenger. Ethan sensed that this was not merely about money, but about reclaiming a wholeness lost to time and trauma. The karmic blockages that chained him to poverty were not curses, but lessons cloaked in struggle. The dog's quiet companionship offered a glimpse of grace, a sacred presence that urged Ethan toward change, not through force or denial, but through compassionate awakening. As the rain eased and the dog settled beside him, Ethan's mind opened to the possibility that the journey ahead would require patience, courage, and a willingness to see beyond the surface of his fears. The first step was not to conquer the blockage, but to acknowledge it, to recognize the story it told and the healing it invited. This call was no longer a distant echo but a living pulse beneath his skin. It beckoned him to embark on a path woven with small, mindful acts and deep listening, an inner journey where the unseen knots of karma might gently unwind. Allow this quiet call to awaken something within you. Follow Ethan's footsteps as they lead into the heart of transformation, where even the smallest gesture can become a sacred ritual of freedom. Despite the stirring within, Ethan found himself resisting the call to change. The old beliefs clung tightly, their roots tangled deep in the soil of his past. Each time he tried to envision a life beyond scarcity, a whisper of doubt would rise. Who am I to deserve abundance? Isn't wanting more a betrayal of what I've lived through? The resistance was not loud or dramatic. It was the quiet hesitation of a soul unsure if the path ahead was safe to tread. In his small apartment, surrounded by relics of a life once full of certainty, Ethan began practicing moments of stillness. He lit a candle each evening, its flame trembling in the dim light, and sat quietly, letting the warmth touch his face. This simple ritual became a fragile refuge, a micro-practice where he could face his fears without judgment. But even here, his mind circled back to scarcity, to the limiting belief that money would only bring pain or distance him from his true self. His hands trembled as he folded a piece of paper into a small boat, then released it into the gentle flow of water at a nearby park. This symbolic act of surrender, though humble, carried the weight of a silent plea, to let go of what no longer served, to open space for something unknown. Yet, the fear lingered like a shadow just beyond the candlelight. What if releasing these blockages meant losing the identity he had clung to for so long? The micro-practice did not banish his doubts, but it opened a crack where light could seep in, a quiet invitation to watch the patterns within and around him, to meet resistance with curiosity rather than fear. In this delicate balance, Ethan began to sense that transformation is not a forceful upheaval but a slow unfolding, where each small gesture carries the potential to shift the unseen knots that bind. This moment of hesitation is familiar to many, where the heart wants to leap but the mind holds back. Yet, within that tension lies the sacred threshold of change, inviting us to step beyond old stories and discover what waits beneath. May your own quiet practices become lanterns on the path, illuminating the way when the night feels too deep. One mist-laden afternoon, Ethan found himself wandering the city's ancient temple grounds, seeking a space where silence might offer answers. It was there, beside a weathered stone altar, that he encountered May, a retired nurse turned spiritual guide whose presence carried the calm of countless seasons. Her eyes, gentle yet piercing, seemed to peer not just into his face but into the shadowed chambers of his soul. May spoke little at first, allowing the stillness to settle between them like sacred incense. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft but unwavering. She told Ethan that karmic blockages are not punishments, but messages, echoes from a past self longing to be heard and healed. Wealth, she explained, is not a corruption of spirit but a reflection of alignment, a flow that mirrors the heart's openness. To break free, she said, is to listen deeply to the whispers within and to honor the pain as a path, not a prison. Guided by her words, Ethan began to see his limiting beliefs as threads in a larger tapestry, woven from fear, loss, and misunderstood love. May introduced a simple practice. Each morning, before the sun rose, Ethan would bow 3 times toward the empty chair beside the altar, honoring the unseen teachers within and without. This gesture, both humble and profound, became a bridge between past and present, between bondage and freedom. With each bow, the invisible chains loosened, and Ethan felt the first tender stirrings of liberation. It was not a sudden transformation, but a gradual awakening, a deepening trust that healing was unfolding through acceptance and reverence. As you watch Ethan's story unfold, may his journey invite you to bow gently before your own unseen struggles, recognizing them as sacred teachers guiding you toward wholeness. Share this light with a heart seeking truth. Ethan's mornings began to carry a new rhythm, each bow before the empty chair a sacred ritual, a silent conversation with the parts of himself long neglected. One dawn, as the first pale light stretched across the temple grounds, he sat quietly by candlelight, the flickering flame reflecting the fragile hope growing within. He closed his eyes and visualized abundance, not just coins or possessions, but a deep, radiant flow of prosperity touching every corner of his life. In this moment, Ethan offered a small bouquet of wildflowers he had gathered from the nearby forest to the weathered stone altar, a humble offering of gratitude and intention. The act felt like planting seeds in the soil of his spirit, an acknowledgement that abundance begins with honoring what is present, even amid scarcity. This simple practice, meditating by candlelight, offering the flowers, was Ethan's first conscious step toward unbinding the karmic knots that had held him captive. It was a gesture of trust, a symbolic action that wove his will and heart into the delicate fabric of transformation. The flowers, soon to wither and return to earth, reminded him that release and renewal are intertwined, that letting go is not loss but the fertile ground for new growth. Though the lingering fears did not vanish, the ritual opened a sacred space where they could exist without ruling him. Each day, as the candle's flame danced, Ethan felt himself gently moving beyond the old stories, slowly, patiently, with quiet courage. In your own journey, may you find strength in small, intentional acts that speak to the soul's longing for freedom. Let these sacred gestures become the rhythm of your awakening. The path of transformation rarely unfolds without resistance. For Ethan, the trials came both from within and without. Old fears surfaced like ghosts in the quiet moments, whispers that questioned his worthiness, shadows that stirred doubt when the weight of past failures pressed hardest. Memories of lost comrades, the silence of friendship strained by distance and time, and the relentless echo of scarcity haunted him, threatening to pull him back into the familiar grip of limitation. Externally, life's demands persisted. Bills piled up, reminders of financial strain pressed down, and the world outside offered little comfort or certainty. Friends and family, unaware of the inner battle, urged him to return to old habits, cautious spending, hiding his dreams, retreating into safety. The dog that once symbolized hope sometimes became a silent witness to Ethan's struggles, their companionship a fragile thread holding him together. Yet, allies emerged in unexpected forms. A fellow temple visitor who shared a quiet smile, a handwritten note tucked inside a borrowed book, the scent of incense lingering long after the flames had died, each became a subtle beacon, a reminder that Ethan was not alone on this path. These small gestures carried the weight of unseen support, the invisible web of connection that cradles the seeker when the way grows steep. Within this landscape of trials, Ethan clung to the rituals that anchored him, the morning bows, the candlelight offerings, the whispered prayers beneath stones in the garden. Each act was a quiet rebellion against despair, a sacred defiance that kept the flame alive. May your own challenges be met with the strength to endure and the grace to receive unexpected kindness. In the interplay of obstacles and allies, the soul finds its rhythm and its resilience. As the days lengthened, a deeper restlessness stirred within Ethan's heart, a disquiet that no ritual or gesture could soothe. The comforting rhythm of his practices began to feel like a fragile veil, barely holding back the surge of old pain and unanswered questions. He found himself haunted by memories not just of loss, but of regret, opportunities missed, words left unsaid, and the creative dreams stifled beneath the weight of belief. This emotional disruption struck with quiet intensity. Alone in his apartment, Ethan stared at a blank journal page, the pen heavy in his hand yet unable to move. The silence around him felt like a chasm, widening between who he was and who he longed to become. The limiting belief, that money was a poison, that abundance would only bring isolation or corruption, felt suddenly suffocating, a cage tightening around his very breath. Yet within this turmoil, a flicker of clarity emerged. Ethan sensed that true change demanded more than rituals. it required facing the raw edges of his fear and grief without turning away. The restless ache was a summons, a call to lean into vulnerability, to embrace the uncertainty as a crucible for growth. In this deeper emotional place, the soul's yearning becomes both a wound and a wellspring. It asks us to surrender old illusions and meet ourselves with uncompromising honesty. Though the path may tremble beneath our feet, it is here that transformation finds its fiercest power. Let this moment of disruption remind you that the unrest within is a sacred messenger, urging you to move beyond comfort toward authentic freedom. The journey is never linear, but always profound. One night, overwhelmed by the weight of his doubts and fears, Ethan found himself walking barefoot beneath a canopy of stars, the cool earth grounding him as tears traced silent paths down his cheeks. In this vulnerable stillness, the long-held barriers within him began to crack, surrendering to a profound breakthrough. The karmic blockages, once impenetrable walls, revealed themselves as fragile constructs, woven from old stories, unspoken grief, and misunderstood love. As the moonlight caressed his face, Ethan whispered a mantra learned from May, softly chanting abundance affirmations while tracing the beads of his mala, each touch a thread reconnecting him to a deeper truth. The chant was not just a repetition of words but a weaving of intention, an invocation of grace that invited healing into the spaces left empty by fear. In this sacred moment, he glimpsed the possibility that wealth was not a thief of spirit, but a reflection of inner harmony, a mirror of the love and acceptance he cultivated within. The breakthrough was gentle yet irrevocable, a quiet awakening that shattered the illusions binding him and opened a doorway to freedom. May your own nights of darkness yield such luminous transformation, where the soul's deepest prayers are heard and answered in ways beyond understanding. Share this light with a heart seeking truth. With the breakthrough gently unfolding, Ethan began to weave his inner world into a new tapestry of alignment. Each morning, before the city stirred, he knelt beside a small garden, placing handwritten prayers beneath smooth stones, each word an offering, each stone a steady anchor in the shifting tides of his heart. This symbolic action grounded his transformation, a sacred dialogue between intention and presence. The old fears that once ruled his days no longer held the same power. Instead, they became quiet reminders, soft echoes of lessons learned rather than chains to bind him. Ethan felt the delicate balance between acceptance and aspiration, understanding that true prosperity flows from this inner harmony, not from external gain alone. He carried this new clarity into everyday moments, the smile shared with a stranger, the gentle touch of the dog's fur beneath his fingers, the calm breath before facing a challenge. Each was a thread in the fabric of his renewed life, a subtle integration of spiritual truth into the practical world. Ethan's journey showed that alignment is not a destination but a living process, a constant tuning of heart, mind, and soul. It is the quiet knowing that abundance begins within, blossoming outward through acts of presence and grace. May you find your own center in this dance of integration, where the soul's light guides every step and every choice becomes a prayer in motion. The true test of Ethan's transformation arrived not in the quiet of the temple, but amidst the unpredictable rhythms of everyday life. One afternoon, faced with an unexpected financial setback, a medical bill that threatened to undo months of careful progress, he felt the old panic rise like a tidal wave. The familiar script whispered urgently, scarcity, fear, retreat. Yet this time, Ethan met the storm with a different heart. Instead of surrendering to despair, he walked barefoot through a nearby forest path, each step grounding him deeper into presence. The moss beneath his feet, the rustle of leaves above, and the cool breeze weaving through branches became a sacred chorus, a reminder that life's challenges are part of the unfolding dance. Here, in nature's embrace, Ethan practiced releasing attachment to outcomes, breathing into uncertainty with a quiet courage he had never known before. Later, he sat by a riverbank and spoke his wishes into the wind, offering vulnerability as strength and opening space for grace to flow. This symbolic act was not about changing his circumstances overnight, but about embracing the fullness of his journey with trust and surrender. In this final test, Ethan embodied the teachings he had gathered, the intertwining of resilience and surrender, action and acceptance. His steps no longer faltered in fear but moved with mindful intent, weaving the threads of spiritual insight into the fabric of real life. May your own trials be met with such gentle strength, turning moments of challenge into gateways of awakening. Ethan's resurrection was quiet but profound, a subtle embodiment of the new truth that had taken root deep within him. No longer a prisoner to the belief that money corrupts or distances him from his spirit, he moved through the world with a calm assurance born from inner transformation. The once heavy burden of scarcity had lifted, replaced by a gentle flow of trust and openness. One evening, beneath a sky painted with fading twilight, Ethan lit a single candle and watched its flame mirror his steady breath. This ritual, simple and sacred, held the essence of his rebirth. Each flicker was a reminder that abundance is not an external prize but an unfolding state of being, a harmony between desire and detachment, between receiving and giving. He had learned to honor the invisible currents shaping his life, recognizing that karmic blockages could be met with compassion rather than fear. In this new embodiment, Ethan's presence radiated a quiet prosperity, a beacon to others walking their own winding paths. May your own resurrection be marked by such gentle illumination, where the soul's quiet victory shines as a guiding light in the unfolding journey. Ethan returned to the world transformed, not through grand gestures, but by carrying the sacred lessons deep within his being. He moved through familiar streets with eyes anew, recognizing that abundance was woven into the very fabric of life, waiting to be embraced with open hands and a healed heart. The karmic blockages that once held him captive had unraveled through patience, ritual, and inner courage. Each day, he continued the practice of folding paper cranes, offerings of peace and hope, leaving them in quiet corners of the city where others might find a glimmer of solace. His journey became a gentle invitation to those still bound by unseen chains, a reminder that healing is possible, that prosperity is not a distant dream but a living reality nurtured by presence and grace. As you walk your own path, remember that transformation lives in the small, sacred moments, the breaths, the gestures, the prayers whispered beneath the stars. May Ethan's story inspire you to release your own blockages and step fully into the flow of abundance that awaits. If this story touched your heart, let your light ripple. Subscribe to Zen Companion, share your voice in the comments, and invite others to join this circle of awakening. Together, we walk the path where stillness speaks and stories heal.